The fact is they've just tested a missile that has a pretty extended range. So my view in the first instance is we've been saying, as we've talked about missile defense in Europe, that there is a real threat. And it seems to me that the test this morning underscores that.
That was Defense Secretary Robert Gates reacting to troubling news about Iran. The Muslim nation reportedly test-fired 9 long and medium-range missiles, including an upgraded version of the Shahab-3, which has an estimated range of over 1,200 miles. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad appears intent on proving his country's ability to retaliate against a U.S. or Israeli strike. Joining us now with reaction is the author of the best-selling book, American Heroes, the host of War Stories, right here on the Fox News Channel, Colonel Oliver North. Colonel North, this was meant to send a signal. How should Israel react?
It was indeed, because those missiles that were fired yesterday can hit not only Israel, but U.S. ships and bases all over the region, and NATO bases in Turkey and the Mediterranean. And, of course, Mr. Ahmadinejad says it's not funny. It's a joke, but it's not funny, because the theocrats in Tehran have this remarkably apocalyptic vision of the future. They envision a future in which there is going to be this devastating collapse in relations between them and the West, and of course that means wiping Israel off the map.
Well, and then therein lies the danger for Israel and for the United States, and then we get into the issue in this presidential race. You have Barack Obama at one point saying, oh, you know, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, they're tiny countries, they're not a serious threat. And then it's like every other position, he's been forced to change and say they are a serious threat. And he certainly doesn't recognize the nature of this threat here. You know, what would it mean to have a Barack presidency?
Well, what it really means is this is a remarkable opportunity for John McCain, because what John McCain ought to do at this point is start talking about solutions. And we've all got to realize, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, that diplomats are not going to dither the Iranians into disarming. The fact of the matter is that what the Iranians are trying to do is, in one way or the other, engage the Israelis. And that's what is likely to happen between the presidential election and the inaugural if something isn't done to deter them.
But we forget that this is a candidate that once said, Colonel North, that it would be a profound mistake to use nuclear weapons under any circumstances.
Well, and this is a man who also wants to sit down and talk eyeball to eyeball with Ahmadinejad. He's reaffirmed that in the last several days as he's been accused of flip-flopping by his own party. Now, here's what John McCain's opportunity in this is, Sean. He needs to get the Europeans and China, because of oil, to join us in real sanctions. Real sanctions will work against the Iranians, because the theocrats running the country want to be able to cash their checks. If they have nowhere in Europe to do it, nowhere in Asia to do it, those sanctions will work.
Hey, Colonel North, it's your good friend Alan Colmes.
Alan Colmes. Aren't you glad to have Sean back?
He's back?
You bet.
All right.
Yes, he's back, and I'm not sitting there. That's how you know he's back.
Fine job, Colonel, filling in, and it's an honor to have you here.
Can we move on with the show, please? All right, you have Maliki.
Doing well up to this point.
Thank you. We have Maliki, our guy in Iraq, who says he's concerned about military pressure against Iran, and he says that the Mideast is in a fragile state, and Maliki, our guy, is warning the United States, stop all this war talk, and he says that, you know, diplomacy is the most effective way, and we shouldn't be talking about any kind of war with Iran. Do we listen to Maliki, who knows what he's talking about there?
Listen, Maliki is sitting in a country that has an enormous border with Iran. He's got people coming across the Iranian border from the Quds Force, which is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, interfering in the safety of his own country, and he doesn't know whether the next president of the United States is going to stick with him or not.
And he won't permit U.S. forces to use Iraqi soil.
What would you be doing?
He will not prevent. He said he will not permit U.S. forces on Iraqi soil as a staging area to go into Iran.
Yeah, and look, you know, everybody says that, and the Saudis will continue to say that right up until the time when the Israelis launch an attack against them. And let me just tell you something. Listen very carefully. This is important. An Israeli attack on Iran is not going to be met by anything except diplomatic dither from the Saudis and the other Sunni states in the Persian Gulf.
By the way,
because they're afraid of the Iranians too, Alan.
Well, yes, by the way, you've had both McCain and you've had Bush say, if they ask us to leave Iraq, we leave Iraq. You have Maliki and the defense minister saying, we want a timeline. So do we now do what those leaders said we should do and listen to them and get out of the country?
And you know what you got to do, Alan? You've got to sit down and actually read the draft of the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Iraq on a status of forces agreement, because it doesn't say about a timeline.
I'm holding McCain to what he said and Bush to what he said, and they've asked us to get a timeline to leave the country.
Yeah, and stick with it, buddy, because they're going to be there for a long
All
time.
right,
You
we
better
don't
hope
listen to
so.
the country we're occupying.
Yeah.
We're
not occupying.
Thank you for being with
We're
us.
helping them.
Coming up, the